So yesterday I managed to get the aft tank sides taped up, and I put some thickened epoxy on the joins to sort of tack weld them in place. Obviously I couldn't do the whole thing because the tapes were there, so the idea is just to blob some bits. So I kind of went a little bit further and spread it out a little bit, so it's kind of half done now. So I can take the tapes off and those will stay in place. So my plan today is to finish those off and then get the wooden battens glued on to the top. And I'm also going to look at doing the forward tank as well, getting that ready to get all glassed in and finished off. So once the tanks are done, the next stage is to put some glass in the bottom and also get the centreboard finished off. So that's another plan for today. So to do all of that, I'd actually like to get the boat back in one piece and on its stand. So I'm just going to go through that process now, just so you can see how long that takes, how it's done. Okay, here we go.
Actually, as it turns out, I'd got some of the holes for the bolts full of epoxy, so I had to drill them out again. So I went off and did that, and during that process I actually stopped the camera filming, and then finally when I'd finished it I put it into time lapse, and then went on to carry on putting the boat back together. So that's what you can see now. Here I'm putting the clamping on the stringers, the brackets onto the tanks, the supporting brackets. So these will get glued on later. But for now I'm just dry fitting everything, making sure they all fit, and getting the angles, cutting the corners and stuff like that. So you can see a lot of clamps are being used, a lot of tape holding things together. So I cut the piece of wood, I clamp it in place, and then I tape it. In fact, what I've done now is I've actually drilled a hole through the outer panel and screwed through that panel into the actual stringer, into the bracket part. And that's useful when you glue, because if you actually use clamps when you glue, it can actually slide around. So it's good to have an actual screw. and in this case you've got to screw through a backing pad to stop for the head of the screw, making a dimple in the face of the tank. And of course then you don't want the backing pad to stick to the wood, so that has to be covered with a piece of tape. So that's all very complicated. Now I'm putting the hatches in. So these ones at the back have got 8 screws, so I'm drilling 8 holes.
Okay, so it's been a long morning. It's 1:45, and I'm going to stop for lunch now. But I have been out down to the sail maker and dropped the sail off, and he's going to put a reef in 28 inches up from the foot of the sail. So that's going to be good. So that means that the sail will be reefable. He needs to put some reinforcement in for the tack eyelet, and some more reinforcement for the out-hole eyelet, and also he needs to change the head, put another eyelet in the head so that we can use a halyard to raise the sail and then obviously drop it down to the reefing point and then pull it back up again. So that should take a couple of weeks. So in the meantime, since I got back, I've dry fitted the supports, the stringers inside the aft tanks. So what does that mean? Well, I've these stringers here, the ones on the stern and on the side, were glued in previously, and I've now taken the screws out that were holding them in place. So I've got a couple of little holes in the hull to sort out at some point. But these side panels now, these 2 panels, the side panel and the front panel, have been tack welded in place, so they've been held in place now. They've been held in place well, and these this side stringer and this front stringer, they're all flush, and in order to keep them in the right place, I've just put a screw through there with a backing pad which has got some tape on it so it doesn't stick if any glue goes through the hole. So that means I can glue these on. I can finish off doing the fillets, and I've also dry fitted these backing plates for the portholes. So that was quite tricky because there's not a lot of spare room, and I centered these, possibly without realizing that this stringer at the top was going to take up quite a lot of room. So I'm not quite sure if you can see in there, but that's just about fit, and I've had to do a little bit of rasping with a bastard rasp in order to get them to fit. So these are held in place with 2 screws from the front in the right position, so that when I glue them they'll go back in the same place, and then the portholes will fit in once that's dried. I'm going to stop for some lunch now, and then I'll mix up the epoxy and get those all glued up after lunch, and if there's still time then I can start working on the stringers in the bow. Okay, so I've just finished putting together the daggerboard case. So this is what it looks like. These are the sides, and inside there are 2 posts which I've currently got screwed on, and then there's some reinforcement pieces for how it attaches to the bulkhead there. So the idea is that this all gets glued up and creates a daggerboard case. The daggerboard will slot through that, and this needs to be glued into the boat about there. So that's roughly what it'll look like when it's glued into position, and that will get glassed in down the back and the side, and then I'm going to put some screws through, some stainless steel screws through the nesting bulkhead into that strut there to hold it in place. Okay, so that's taken a bit of time because I needed to get the edges slightly curved again, and then there's a bit of curve there because of the angle of the tape over the fillet, so I've got to get a nice curve there to fit that, and then this has to be kind of fairly straight, And so what I'm going to do next is glue these 1, 2, 3, 4 stringers, glue those 4 stringers onto this starboard side of the daggerboard case, and then tomorrow, when that's dry, I'll coat the inside of here and the inside of this one with 3 coats of epoxy, and I'm probably going to be doing the inside of the tanks at the same time, so tomorrow will be a 3 coats of epoxy day. So that's going to be about 8 hours, because you have to leave at least 4 hours between each coat, give it a chance to dry out enough, but no more than 12 hours. So yeah, that's the plan for tomorrow. So in order to do that, I need to get these glued up today. So that's going to be glued, and I'm also going to put the fillets on these aft tanks and glue the stringers into place there as well. So that's going to be quite a lot of gluing. So I'm getting quite low on epoxy, so I hope it lasts. Pretty sure it will. This was 5.5 kilos, and there's about this much left now. I mean, it wasn't completely full to the brim, it was about up to there. So I've used probably 3/4 of the epoxy so far. So that was 5.5 kilos, and then 2.5 kilos of activator. So that is, because it's 2-to-1 ratio, so that's 8 kilos in total. So I've almost used 8 kilos now. So to give the boat a proper coating and perhaps put some glass on the bottom, inside and out, I'm probably going to need at least another 3 or 4 kilos. So I better get that ordered. Okay, time for some epoxying and gluing.
So now I'm mixing up some epoxy, done this a few times now, and then I'm using this to put some fillets on the bottom of the tanks where the tank sides meet the hull. You need to put the fillets in first before you can put the glass over that, because you can't have a square edge for glass, it needs to be filleted. And now I'm putting in the brackets. So these are the strips of wood that are going to support the seat, and it goes on top of the tank. With these brackets, first of all, you've got to paint the side of the panel with the epoxy, give it a coat of epoxy, and then you have to put a coat of epoxy on the actual bracket as well, and then you mix some thickener into the epoxy until it becomes a glue-like consistency, and then you smear that onto the 2 pieces, and then finally put the 2 pieces together, and then use the screws through the backing pad to draw the 2 together and hold them in position while the glue sets, and then leave it overnight basically.
Okay, so that's the end of today. The aft tanks are now all filleted, and the 2 stringers on each tank have been glued and screwed into place. I've also glued on the posts onto the starboard side of the daggerboard case. So once that's dry, then tomorrow I can start with the 3 coats on the inside of that. So that's it for today. I'm pretty tired. It's been quite a busy day, and it is quite wearing. There's a lot of concentration required to get this filleting right, and I just hope it looks okay in the morning. So the tanks now have been filleted on the outside, on both tanks on the sides, and they've also been filleted on the inside on both tanks, and the stringers have been glued in place as well, and also the backing pads for the portholes, for the port hatches, for the access hatches, which was a bit fiddly. In fact, quite a lot of it was fiddly, to be honest. And then this is the starboard side. So those tanks now are ready for maybe a bit of sanding. Well, tomorrow these tanks should be ready for a bit of sanding and then painting on the insides. And then after that they can be sealed, the tops can go on, and they're done. But given that there's a lot of space inside that tank to epoxy, and I've got to do the underside of the seat as well, all 3 coats, I think I might need some more epoxy before I can do that. So that's going to be the next job, I think, buying more epoxy. Okay, so that's it for today. See you again tomorrow.